Have you ever wondered why some people, despite all life's challenges, manage to maintain stability, dignity, and inner peace, while others, even with greater privileges, constantly stumble from one crisis to another? Today I'll reveal one of the deepest truths recognized by the greatest minds throughout history, the truth about wisdom hidden at the very core of female nature. An Eastern sage said something that will forever change the way you see and recognize wise women around you. Stay until the end, because I'll reveal two key characteristics by which you'll always be able to recognize a truly wise woman. Throughout human history, wisdom has been one of the most valued virtues. However, it is often misunderstood and replaced with superficial values, especially when we talk about female wisdom. In today's world, where social media imposes a distorted image of success and happiness, how do we actually recognize true wisdom? I think about how the media bombards us with images of women who are supposedly successful only because of their appearance, material wealth, or connections with influential people. But real wisdom, the kind that is constant and unchanging through centuries, is not manifested through external symbols. Aristotle, one of the greatest minds of ancient Greece, had an interesting view on this question. He believed that true wisdom does not lie in striving for immediate pleasures or in accumulating material goods. In fact, he claimed that a wise man does not strive for what is pleasant, but for what eases troubles. In other words, wisdom is manifested in the ability to face challenges, to overcome them, not to avoid them by seeking short-term pleasures. Let's think about this more deeply. Every day, we make dozens of decisions. Some are simple: what we'll have for breakfast, what clothes we'll wear. But other decisions require deeper thinking. They affect our life path, our relationships, our inner balance. A wise woman recognizes the difference between these types of decisions. She knows when to pause, think, and choose a path that may not be the easiest or most pleasant, but is the most beneficial in the long run. I also think about how we encounter failures and disappointments, as they are an inevitable part of human experience. A wise woman does not blame others for her failures. She does not look for blame in bad luck or an unfair world. Instead, she accepts responsibility for her actions and their consequences. This is the first key characteristic highlighted by the Eastern sage: the wise can be called those whose plans are carried out in most cases. But this doesn't mean that a wise woman doesn't experience failures. On the contrary, she understands that failures are inevitable and, more importantly, that they are valuable. Each failure brings a lesson, an opportunity for growth and development. And that's exactly what distinguishes her. Her ability to learn from experience, to adjust her plans and strategies, and to continue progressing despite obstacles. Jean de la Bruyère, a French philosopher and moralist from the 17th century, noticed an interesting paradox of intelligence that is still relevant today. He observed that people who consider themselves very smart often show a lack of real intelligence. This observation reveals another important characteristic of wise women: humility. A wise woman does not feel the need to constantly prove her intelligence or superiority. She doesn't have to be the loudest person in the room or have the last word in every discussion. Instead, she listens, observes, thinks. She understands that knowledge is infinite and that, no matter how much she learns, there is always much more to learn. This brings us to an important understanding: wisdom is not the same as intelligence. Although they are related, these are two different qualities. Intelligence is often measured by the ability to think quickly, solve problems, and absorb new information. Wisdom, however, goes a step further. It includes the ability to apply knowledge in the right way, at the right moment, with the right understanding of deeper purpose. I think about old cultures where older community members were deeply respected for their wisdom. This respect did not come from their ability to quickly solve a mathematical problem or from their knowledge of the latest technologies. It came from their ability to extract deep insights from life experience, to recognize patterns, to predict consequences, and to make thoughtful decisions that benefit the entire community. Eleanor Roosevelt, one of the most influential women of the 20th century, brought another important insight to this topic. She noticed that people with a lack of intelligence often fall into gossip and backbiting, while smart individuals understand deeper moral and ethical concepts. This is the third important characteristic of wise women: their ability to rise above petty conflicts and superficial preoccupations. A wise woman does not waste time on gossip, on participating in unnecessary dramas, or on spreading negativity. She understands that such activities are not only useless but also harmful, for herself, for those she talks about, and for the community as a whole. Instead, she directs her energy toward constructive activities, toward solving real problems, toward building and maintaining healthy relationships. Let's think about how we react when we hear bad news about someone we know. Is our first reaction to share it with others, to spread the story, perhaps adding our own interpretations or assumptions? Or do we pause, think about the context, about possible explanations, about how our words might affect the person in question? A wise woman chooses this second path. Speaking of Eleanor Roosevelt, it's worth mentioning her famous statement, "No one can make you feel inferior without your consent." This is another aspect of wisdom, understanding that our emotions and our reactions are not completely determined by external circumstances. We have the power of choice in how we interpret events and how we react to them. Psychological research on resilience confirms this idea. It shows that people who manage to overcome difficult life circumstances often share certain characteristics, including the ability to see the bigger picture, to maintain a sense of purpose, and to believe in their ability to influence their own future. These are precisely the qualities traditionally associated with wisdom. A study published in the journal Developmental Psychology showed that people with a higher degree of psychological resilience tend to assign meaning and purpose to their experiences, even painful ones. Instead of seeing obstacles as insurmountable problems, they see them as opportunities for growth and development. This is exactly what a wise woman does. She doesn't run from challenges, but approaches them with the understanding that they will make her stronger and wiser. The second important characteristic highlighted by the Eastern sage refers to the attitude toward life and happiness. Simply, she doesn't expect a happy life but creates it herself. A wise woman understands that happiness is not something that happens to her, but something she actively creates through her choices, her attitudes, her actions. This reminds me of research in positive psychology, a field that focuses on the conditions and processes that contribute to the optimal functioning of people, groups, and institutions. One of the key discoveries of this discipline is that happiness is not a result of external circumstances, like wealth, fame, or physical attractiveness, as much as it is a result of internal factors, such as gratitude, meaningfulness, and quality relationships. Dr. Martin Seligman, often considered the father of positive psychology, identified several key elements of psychological well-being: positive emotions, engagement, relationships, meaning, and achievement. A wise woman intuitively understands these elements and actively cultivates them in her life. She doesn't wait for someone else to bring her happiness or satisfaction. She doesn't expect that a perfect partner, a perfect job, or a perfect body will bring her the fulfillment she seeks. Instead, she takes responsibility for her own happiness. She nurtures relationships that feed her, engages in activities that give her a sense of purpose and meaning, and practices gratitude for what she already has. When I think about modern society, I notice how often we are trapped in comparing ourselves with others. Social media allows us to see carefully curated snippets from other people's lives, their successes, their travels, their seemingly perfect relationships. It's easy to fall into the trap of envy or feelings of inadequacy when we constantly compare ourselves with these idealized versions of reality. But a wise woman understands the trap of comparison. She knows that each person has their unique path, their unique challenges, their unique gifts. Instead of comparing herself with others, she compares herself with who she was yesterday. Her focus is on her own growth, her own development, her own path to fulfillment. Furthermore, a wise woman maintains a healthy balance between self-confidence and self-criticism. She believes in her abilities, but is also aware of her limitations. She's not afraid to seek help when she needs it, nor is she afraid to admit when she doesn't know something. This kind of humility is not a weakness, but is actually a sign of her strength and confidence. I think about the concept of fixed versus growth mindset, developed by psychologist Carol Dweck. People with a fixed mindset believe that their abilities are largely unchangeable. Either you're smart or you're not, either you're talented at something or you're not. On the other hand, people with a growth mindset believe that their abilities can be developed through effort, strategies, and help from others. A wise woman embodies this growth mindset. She understands that intelligence, creativity, and even wisdom can be developed and nurtured over time. She doesn't see failures as evidence of her incompetence, but as opportunities for learning and growth. This perspective allows her to remain open to new ideas, new experiences, and new challenges. Another aspect of wisdom worth considering is the ability to recognize and manage one's own emotions. Emotional intelligence, the ability to recognize, understand, and manage our own emotions, as well as to recognize, understand, and influence the emotions of others, is a key component of wisdom. A wise woman neither suppresses her emotions nor allows them to completely overwhelm her. Instead, she uses them as valuable sources of information about herself, about others, about the situation she's in. She understands that emotions come and go like waves on the sea, and that she doesn't have to be enslaved by them. This reminds me of Stoicism, a philosophical school that emphasized the importance of distinguishing between what we can control and what we cannot. Stoics taught that the key to happiness is in accepting what we cannot change and directing our energy toward what we can. A wise woman intuitively understands this lesson. She doesn't waste time and energy worrying about things beyond her control, about other people's opinions, about past events that cannot be changed, about an uncertain future. Instead, she focuses on what she can control, her thoughts, her choices, her actions. I also think about the concept of flow, developed by psychologist Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi. Flow is a state in which we are completely immersed in an activity, feeling energy, focus, and enjoyment in the process. It's a state in which our abilities are in balance with the challenge before us, neither too easy, which would lead to boredom, nor too difficult, which would lead to anxiety. A wise woman seeks and nurtures these flow moments in her life. She engages in activities that give her a sense of purpose and fulfillment, that allow her to use her gifts and talents. Whether it's her career, hobbies, relationships, or spiritual practices, she finds ways to fully engage and enjoy the process, not just the results. This brings me to another important aspect of wisdom, the ability to live in the present moment. We are often so preoccupied with regretting the past or worrying about the future that we miss the beauty and possibilities of the present moment. A wise woman understands the importance of presence, the ability to be fully engaged in what she's doing now, with full awareness and attention. Mindfulness has deep roots in many spiritual traditions, but has also received significant confirmation in contemporary psychology. Research shows that regular practice of mindfulness can reduce stress, improve cognitive abilities, increase emotional regulation, and even strengthen the immune system. A wise woman cultivates this kind of mindful presence in her daily life. She eats with full awareness of the flavors and textures of food. She listens with full attention, without planning her next response while the other person is still speaking. She notices beauty in small things, in a sunset, in a child's smile, in the smell of rain on warm asphalt. Another aspect of a wise woman is her ability to maintain balance between different aspects of her life. In today's busy world, it's easy to become preoccupied with one area of life, career, relationships, parenting, personal development, at the expense of others. But a wise woman understands the importance of a holistic approach to life. She nurtures her physical health through regular exercise, healthy eating habits, and sufficient rest. She nurtures her mental health through constant learning, creative activities, and mental challenges. She nurtures her emotional health through quality relationships, emotional self-awareness, and healthy regulation of emotions. And she nurtures her spiritual health, whether through traditional religious practice, meditation, connection with nature, or other forms of spirituality. I think about the concept of the wheel of life that is often used in coaching and personal development. This tool helps people visualize different areas of their life, such as career, relationships, health, finances, personal development, and assess how satisfied they are with each. The goal is not necessarily to achieve perfect balance or a 10 in every area, but to consciously decide how much energy and attention we want to devote to each. A wise woman understands that different areas of life will sometimes require more attention than others. She is flexible and adaptable, ready to adjust her focus to changing circumstances and needs. But she also strives to avoid long-term imbalance that could lead to dissatisfaction, burnout, or feeling that an important aspect of her life is being neglected. I also think about how a wise woman approaches relationships. At the heart of wisdom is the understanding that we are all interconnected, that our words and deeds affect others, just as the words and deeds of others affect us. A wise woman nurtures relationships that support and inspire her, and at the same time is ready to set healthy boundaries. Studies on attachment, a field of psychology that explores the nature of emotional bonds between people, show that secure, supportive relationships are key to our mental and emotional well-being. A wise woman intuitively understands this and actively works on building and maintaining such relationships in her life. But she also understands the importance of boundaries. She knows that it's not her responsibility to save everyone around her, that she cannot and should not take on other people's problems as her own. She provides support and help, but in a way that empowers, not creates dependency. And she is ready to set boundaries when her needs, values, or well-being are threatened. This brings me to another important characteristic of a wise woman, her ability to stand up for herself. She doesn't seek approval from others, doesn't try to please everyone, doesn't change to fit into others' expectations. Instead, she knows her values, her boundaries, her needs, and is ready to clearly communicate and defend them when necessary. I think about the concept of authenticity, the idea of living in accordance with our true self, without pretending or compromising our core values. Research shows that people who live authentically often report greater life satisfaction, greater psychological well-being, and a stronger sense of purpose. A wise woman embodies this authenticity. She doesn't wear masks, doesn't pretend to be someone she's not. She accepts her virtues and flaws, her light and her shadow. And it's precisely this authenticity that makes her so attractive, so inspiring, so powerful. Finally, a wise woman understands the importance of constant growth and development. She knows that life is a journey, not a destination, and that there is always something new to learn, experience, become. She doesn't allow fear, comfort, or apathy to prevent her from utilizing her potential. Wisdom is not reserved only for a chosen few, nor is it something that comes automatically with years. It is a quality that we can all cultivate through conscious choices, through reflection, through openness to learning from all experiences that life brings us. The Eastern sage said, "The wise can be called those whose plans are carried out in most cases." And I would add that the wise can be called those who understand that true plans are not just about achieving external success, but also about inner growth, about living in accordance with one's own values, about creating a life filled with meaning and purpose. As we have seen, a wise woman is not characterized by material things or superficial achievements. She is characterized by a deep readiness to face reality, to accept responsibility for her actions and their consequences, to make decisions that are in line with her values and long-term good. She doesn't expect a perfect life without suffering or challenges. She knows that such a life doesn't exist. Instead, she accepts life as it is, with all its beauties and ugliness, and creates her own happiness through meaningful choices, quality relationships, and constant growth. These are lessons that we can all apply, regardless of our gender, age, or life circumstances. And when we do, we not only become wiser, but also happier, more fulfilled, and more capable of facing everything that life brings us, with grace, with courage, with wisdom. That is the essence of true wisdom, and that is the ideal that we can all strive for. Thank you for watching. If you liked the video, share it with those who might find value in these reflections. Until next time, live wisely.